Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday, April the 1st. Today's April Fool's Day. Hopefully you didn't get fooled like me today. I'll talk about this last trade. I really got fooled this on this one trade here, but I'll talk about it when we get to it. It was really a pretty good trading day if you got in early. It was a great move down, and I'm going to show you this. There's your first leg, and then you got a little correction. And then you see your second leg, and it's a perfect measured move. Made a double top, a double bottom, and we made a higher high and came back and tried to test that. Made a higher low, and then we kind of traded up until right in here about 1:30. And I mean, there just really wasn't much happening from 10 o'clock to 1:30, and there really hadn't much happened since then. We just kind of been in this trading range, and really we started out in a little bit of a higher trading range. And it just, if you didn't catch one of these first couple of moves, but hopefully you can see that right there, um, that first leg, and really that's where the down, you could measure it from there. You still get the same thing where the closes were. But if you measure from there where the down move really started, it's a perfect measured move. So again, doesn't matter how you measure it really. You can still come out looking for the bottom right here. And that's exactly where we made it. And we broke that channel. It's a two-legged move, and I'll show you that too. We'll just use the same one. There's leg one, and you got a little correction in there, and then leg two, and you see one a little bit higher. But it's really just a two-legged correction, and then we made the retest, and now it looks like we're trying to maybe work out of here. We'll see. But this afternoon really was nothing but a big trading range. It's not even that big of a trading range, but all the movement was early this morning. If you count one of these moves, they were pretty good moves. Past that, there just wasn't much happening. And I was done for the day and talked myself into entering right in here, and I'll explain that again in a minute. There's still about 30 minutes left in the day, so we'll see what happens. Looks like we've got a failed break lower here, but we got a little channel here, so whether or not we'll get a retest, we did retest the trend line just like we did here. And that's what you'll see a lot of times on these small moves. All you get is a retest back of the trend line or something. You don't necessarily get a new extreme. So you just never know how those will work out. But let's talk about the trades. It'll be pretty quick today. Like I said, just not much happening, and you just have to sit tight. There was really, I guess I should mark this one right here. There wasn't a break. You might have considered this a break. It isn't much of one. Okay, I had an interruption there, and I was about to show you this trade here, and I added it when I didn't have the recording going, and I can't remember what I explained, so I'm just going to start over here. There was a long right here. It was really aggressive, so I put it in green. I tried to get long here, but because this bar is so big, you needed to get long closer back here, and you notice it jumped above and it took off. This is our little gap theory kind of deal. Look, it came back and went higher. It came back and got a little lower and filled it, and then went a lot higher. But because of this double bottom, I measured two measured legs and a higher high and a higher low and another higher high, and it looked like another higher low there. Um, Even though that's kind of a little trap right there, I was tempted to go short right here, but I didn't. I drew this trend line off those two swings, pulled it down, and I could see that we were closing above that. So I didn't like, I didn't like this right here. Actually, you couldn't see this until the trade had already triggered, but because of all the overlap and the dojis right there, I didn't like it. And then it looked like it was going to set up a long trap, but it didn't. And it went higher, and it really tested this a couple of times. So you could have gone long here or here, but I'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to show you that there was a long trade right there, and I tried to take it, but I used a limit order and dropped it back in here, and it didn't get filled, and it went without me. So that's kind of what happens. But you don't want to you don't want to be entering on a big move down like that too early, especially back way up here. If you're getting it down here at the low, then there's a chance it's going to bounce, especially on a double bottom like that after a measured move. And I showed you earlier that was a perfect measured move, really. But let's go talk about the trades. We started out in this trading range here. Um, you might have had a little bit of a trend line up through here like so. But to me, this is really a trading range. You can see prices start out above the EMA, then we're below, then we're above. And we had this failed break up here. This is a nice short. I really don't see any trend there. Um, at the very least, you're looking for prices to come back to the EMA. It's a chance that, you don't know that this is going to happen, this big sell-off, but that's why you take these trades, because that's what happens a lot of times. And I got a little worried here when it pulled back, but when it turned back down there, I felt really good to hang on and was able to ride this one all the way down to the double bottom, and that's where I exited on the overnight lows. And that's what you had to figure we were probably going to test, even though we kind of had a support resistance area right there. You can see it was resistance earlier, and then it turned into support. So you had to be aware of that, and you can see we stopped there, but it went right on through it, and it caught everybody off guard right there, you can see. And there was a little bit of a trap. This is kind of a two-legged pullback. One leg down, a little pull up, then a second leg, and it tried to go higher, and it tricked a lot of people. And that's why that big move is down like that, because that's a trap, and it had people tricked. And then I just drew this line off these lows here, right across there, pulled it up to the upper side, and that's where I was looking for the bounce up here. And you got a second entry short right there. It went into this overlap. You might have exited this one, but if you kept your stop above the signal bar like you're supposed to, not a problem. And it was really worth going short right there almost. It's not a perfect reversal bar, but it's pretty nice. Let me just make that a little bigger. But it was coming right off what was suspected as the trend line, but it gave you a chance to get in a little better. If you dropped your limit order back in here, you can see it came back. And then you got another chance to enter right here if you weren't already in. I don't like this setup as much, but it's really two tries to go up. It's really a little two-legged correction. One leg up, pull back, second leg up, and then right there, chance to get in. And either one of these, your runners were safe. And again, then you're looking for a measured move, so you want to exit down here when you get about a measured move right in here. If you didn't exit here, you definitely should have exited after this bar. And then you get the break. You're still looking for a retest more than still looking for a retest more than likely. So, but that's a little bitty reversal bar up there. That's generally a pretty good setup on a break above this support resistance area right across here. And you can see we kind of played on both sides of that all day, and we're kind of testing that area again there. So I didn't like any of these other shorts in here for the reason I talked about earlier. It just wasn't a good setup. And I drew this line here, and I pulled it down here and dropped it. And you can see that's just a copy of that line. And that's exactly where we bounced. So there's a trap right here. It's a failed second entry long that turns into a second entry short. It's still a higher low than these two lows, and off it went. And again, you're probably thinking exit right in here or right off that line. And, I exited right here above that bar. Missed it by a couple of ticks of getting the very high, but you can't get it all, so don't be greedy. Just take what it'll give you. And, you might just drag your stop up below this in case it turns down, and still you wouldn't have got but maybe I wouldn't have got but maybe one more tick than you by exiting. But sometimes it keeps going, so sometimes it's better. There's different ways to manage your stops depending on how you feel comfortable. I'll usually exit at a target, and I was looking for a high just barely above this one because that got you to right in here somewhere. But I expected we'd probably hit the trend line, the trend channel line, and we did, and we went through it, came back and tested it a couple of times, and then we're headed down. It was tempting to go short here, but then you got all the overlap, so better just to wait. And then there's nothing really going long here. Again, all this overlap, but then you get this little trap, and this is the one I want to talk about. This is at 2 o'clock, and I've been done for the day. I already said I was done, and I saw this trap, or at least what I thought was a trap, and I took it right there, and guess what happened? I got trapped. So I had to reverse right here. I exited. I just actually reversed because I assumed it's a trap, and you see I made it back real quick. I lost, I actually entered on a limit order here. So I entered at 55.75. I exited 2 ticks below that in reverse, so I lost maybe 4 ticks, 3 ticks, and then I made that and then some back on the way down here. So, you know, I hate to talk about reversals because a lot of you'll do it and you'll be right to begin with, and you'll reverse and you'll just get banged twice when you had it right the first time. So I hate to talk about that kind of stuff because it's better just to exit. But when you know you're trapped like that, and that's a double top right at the EMA, and that should have been my clue, all this overlap. But I really thought we had a short trap. Well, we did have a short trap here, and it would have gotten you out if you entered down here, but I didn't enter down here. I entered up here, and it was a horrible entry, and it was a dumb move when I was already done for the day. And but I was lucky enough that it was a trap and I was able to make it back. And while I'm thinking about that, let's talk about that because somebody asked me about that. How do you know this is a trap right here? You don't know it's a trap until it breaks below this bar. You got kind of a second leg. You got one leg up, a pullback, and you're working on the second leg. And so if you go long right there, this is not um, a trap until this bar goes below this low, or once this bar closes, you break below it. And so you don't know this is going to be a trap, but how do you enter there? You just drop your stop here after this bar completes. And if it breaks below it, then it's a trap and you're automatically in. If it doesn't break below it and it goes higher, then you just cancel the order. So that's how you get in a trap. You don't know that it's a trap until it actually triggers, and then and they usually move really, really quick. So a lot of times you don't have a chance to get in them properly. And so once I realized I was trapped there, my goal was, hey, we're going to make a new low. So I'm riding this out to a new low. And guess what? We made a new low, tried to go one step lower, and we've been rallying ever since. So there's your trend channel. There's your break. There's your retest with a new low. And now we're pulling out of there. Exactly what you're looking for. But that's how you know a trap. This is really a failed second entry long right here. And once it did that, you could have just dropped your stop in here. And if it goes lower, you know you caught a second entry short on a trap. And if it doesn't and it goes higher, then you just cancel the order because it doesn't get triggered. So that's how you get it. That's how you get involved in those traps. Um, you don't know that they're a trap until they trigger, and then it's usually too late. So you got to be thinking ahead and saying, hey, now if prices don't go any, when this bar ended, when you ended in these little right here with a failed second entry long, you got to be thinking right then that, hey, if it turns down, that's a trap, and that's going to be a second entry short. And, we're looking for prices to go lower. We're in this channel. And so just drop your stop order right there. Or when it breaks lower, try to drop it in up here. But you can see that just rocketed on down and closed right here. Never went any higher. You probably wouldn't have got filled. So you have to put a stop order right there to sell. And when it breaks lower, that's the trap. It triggered itself, and then off it goes. As you can see, any runners would have been easily safe on that trade, and you ride it all the way down. So all your money was made really on 2 trades, and maybe here if you entered, because they wouldn't have got your runners till they were down here, and then it's too late and they don't get your runners. So you either got tricked out of this one, which is what they tried to do, or you held on and you were able to ride it all the way down. And so hopefully that makes sense to you. Pretty good trading day. Not a lot of trades from here on. And that's what happens when you get slow days like this, is that, and you could have gone short right here, but it was really risky going short still. Even though we hadn't had a retest yet, this is close enough to be a possible retest on a day like this after a double bottom, because it's kind of a reversal pattern, and it did reverse. It just didn't hold. And then we still got the retest. So there just wasn't a lot of volume today. And you can see really we got all this movement from just after the open till around 10 o'clock. And then from 10 o'clock until, 2 o'clock, 1:30 or 2, nothing was happening. We were just stuck in this 3 or 4 point range. And it'll cause you to make mistakes because you want to, you're thinking, I got to find an entry. I got to find an entry. And that's all that happened to me there. I let them do that to me today. I thought I was smart catching this bounce right here. I thought I had them trapped low, and I thought we'd do a retest. And we did a retest, all right, but it was only the trend line. And you can see we We tested it once, pulled back, tested it again. That was enough, a double top under the EMA right off that trend line. Dumb mistake on my part, and off we go down to a new low. So you just never know what's going to happen if you follow the rules more times than not. And if I'd have followed the rules, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 overlapping bars, and at least one of them's a doji. So if I'd have followed the rules, I wouldn't have got trapped. Right, I wouldn't have got trapped right there, and I would have seen the trap when it broke lower, and I could have doubled my money because I wouldn't have had a losing trade mixed in there with my winning trade. So, like I said, I was lucky that there was a trap that moved quick enough to get me that money back, or I would have had a loss on that trade right there today. And sometimes you don't get that loss because, every fiber in my body was saying, just hang on and let this one go against you a little bit because it's probably going to rally out of here once you get a new low, but you don't know that it don't make another leg like this, so it's just too risky. And of course, I took my loss, and luckily I reversed, and I said, the odds are we're going to make a new low now. And did I know it was going to rally out of here like this? No, but you got to expect that it could, especially when you make one low and then barely go lower. You definitely don't want to be going short in there, and your short wouldn't have set up till here, and you see there's not really one. Then your first time it broke lower was here, and you don't want to be going low below that with everything back up here after a new low and a trend line break, and you see we're just steadily working higher. And so hopefully that all makes sense to you. And but yeah, that's how you know, you don't know that a trap's going to be a trap until it's too late. So if you see something setting up, and you got to be thinking a little bit ahead. So, I mean, I was looking at this as a trap right here because we had all this overlap and we broke higher and came off the trend line. And that's a retest of that little low right there. And here's one of our gaps again, right there where that low, we gapped over that. And then here's one, we gapped out of there today. What it is the market's moving so fast that one bar closes, the next one opens, and it did it again right here. It did come back and fill that little gap and then went higher. But I've gotten a lot of questions about, well, how do you trade this? What, the idea is don't go trading on these gaps. I'm just noticing them, and I've noticed a tendency that they usually come back and fill them, and you can see here it came back and filled it before it went higher. And so it's just a tendency that I've noticed. And so I'm not trying to tell you to trade them in any way, so don't send me emails asking how you trade it or anything like that, because you don't trade it like that. It's just a tendency, and you can see there was one right here. We closed there, we opened here, but it ticked back and filled it pretty quick. But notice how it comes back. Those things tend to, and then it gaps again, almost in the same place, just a little bit different. And those are what I call, they're thin areas is what they are, and they usually turn out to be support and resistance. And they're like thin areas, in other words, that there's not enough prices move through, either the buying overwhelms the selling or the selling overwhelms the buying, and there's not a whole lot of liquidity right in that area. And I call those thin areas because, the volume's thin in there, and you get a lot of, and if you find those things, you'll notice that if it does it going one way, it's likely to do it coming back the other. But more than anything, I've noticed they come back and fill each other, and there's still a lot of buying left in there that didn't get filled, and you see it right there. It starts buying instantly and goes higher again. And it did it right here. It was selling, and then it comes back, and instantly they start selling right in that area again, and boom, off it goes. So, and here, we was buying, and they come back, and they buy it instantly a couple of times. So just something to watch. I'm not telling you to trade that. I'm not saying there's any setups or any system around that, so don't go looking for that. It's just another tool to put in your box. It's something you can watch for. If you see a trap there, if you see some other reason to enter, and then you notice that, it's just one more reason to say, hey, this is a good chance this may go higher or this may go lower based on that gap right there. So that's all that is. I'm just kind of investigating them, playing with them, watching them, learning about them. I mean, that's how you get better at price action. You start to notice things like this, and you watch it, and you get better at it, and you get to know the tendencies. And every market has its own little tendency, so it may not do that if you're trading oil. My guess is you'll get the similar thing in oil or the currencies, any of the futures currencies. But don't, make sure before you go trading it, make sure you know what you're doing. Don't go trading that stuff. And I'm not trying to teach you any kind of trade by mentioning that. So, but several people ask me that, well, how do I trade this? You don't. I'm not telling you to trade this at all. So make sure you understand that. But anyway, that's about it for the day. I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you tomorrow.